Top 15 contaminated fish you shouldn't be eating. In the 2 previous episodes, we were talking about 9 types of fish. The common feature of which is due to mercury fish has become more toxic than ever. 1. Shark. 2. Swordfish. 3. King mackerel. 4. Tilefish. 5. Albacore tuna or tuna steaks. 6. Spanish mackerel. 7. Orange roughy. 8. Bluefish. 9. Chilean sea bass. Come to number 10 now. 10. Pacific Ocean perch. Mercury does more than accumulate in fish. It also accumulates in the human body. This bioaccumulation in seafood carries over to human beings, where it can result in mercury poisoning in human-controlled studies of the ecosystems of fish, which are generally done for market production of a wanted species of seafood. Results clearly show that mercury rises through the food chain from the fish that consume plankton, which is eaten by larger fish, which are consumed by even larger fish. Each succession of fish absorbs the mercury that came from each fish that was consumed by the previous fish. Pacific Ocean perch is commonly served in many restaurants as well as being caught by sports fishermen. 11. Imported catfish. We don't mean the catfish that your Uncle Joe catches on Sunday afternoons down at the local lake. We are referring to imported catfish. Almost 90% of the catfish that is imported to America comes from Vietnam, where they commonly use antibiotics that have been banned for use in the USA. In fact, the 2 types of Vietnamese catfish that are commonly sold in the US, soy and basa, really aren't catfish at all, at least not by government standards, which means that these fish aren't held up to the same inspection laws that other imported catfish are. If your Uncle Joe can't catch enough catfish to keep you satisfied, be sure that you buy domestic, farm-raised catfish, which, for the most part, is responsibly farmed and super plentiful. So it should be inexpensive as well. You could also try Asian carp, which tastes very much like catfish and is also super plentiful. 12. Atlantic cod. It gets confusing sometimes whether to eat fish from the Pacific or the Atlantic, but it really does make a difference. Everyone feels bad about adding this to the do not eat list because New England fishermen rely on this fish for their economic livelihood. But besides being contaminated with mercury, the chronic mismanagement of this fish by the National Fisheries Services has placed this fish just one step above making the endangered species list. Until this fish species recovers its numbers, eat Pacific cod, which is still extremely plentiful and not nearly as contaminated. If you love good old-fashioned fish and chips, and almost all of these recipes use cod, then opt for Pacific cod. Tastes the same and is a better, healthy choice. If you regularly use frozen fish sticks or fish fillets, read the label and choose Pacific cod. Until the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of Threatened Species says that Atlantic cod is safe to consume once more. 13. American eel. American eel is sometimes referred to as silver eel or even yellow eel. This fish, which is most commonly found in sushi restaurants, found its way here due to high levels of contamination from both mercury and PCBs. Unfortunately, this tasty fish is also suffering from more than just pollution, but overfishing as well. If you love the taste of eel, avoid the poisons and contamination and choose either Atlantic cod squid or even Pacific cod squid, as both taste almost exactly the same but are plentiful and have low contamination levels. Mercury can impair the nervous system and brain development, especially in infants, young children, and developing fetuses. Although the 2011 Food Safety Modernization Act was supposed to help the FDA better monitor fish farms and imported fish to be sure that they meet certain standards, lack of funding means this may or may not happen. so you will need to do some research on your own and avoid dangerously contaminated, over-harvested fish such as American eel. 14. Atlantic flatfish. Atlantic flatfish include such fish as sole, halibut, and flounder that are caught off the Atlantic coast of the U.S. These, like many of the fish from the Atlantic Ocean, are heavily contaminated due to industrial waste as well as being overfished. In fact, these fish populations are as low as 1% of what is thought to be necessary for sustainable long-term fishing, according to the Food and Water Watch. Consider eating other fish that have the same mild flavor and white flesh, such as tilapia or Pacific halibut, although you might consider eating imported fish. More than 85% of fish consumed in America is imported. Many other countries do not have the same standards for fish as the U.S. does, which means imported fish can have banned antibiotics and pesticides such as DDT in the meat. The FDA cannot possibly test every single fish that comes into the country, so only a very small fraction is ever tested. 15. Caviar. Okay, so it's not swimming yet, but fish eggs could be fish one day if left alone. Most of the caviar consumed in the U.S. comes from wild-caught sturgeon or beluga, which have been overfished for years. In fact, these species are also being threatened by an increase in the production of dams, which pollute the water in which these fish live. All types of caviar come from fish that take many years to mature, which means the population takes years to recover, rather than consume imported caviar. Read the labels and choose eggs that come from American lake sturgeon or shovelnose, sometimes called American hackleback sturgeon from the Mississippi River. Yes, even the eggs of contaminated fish contain chemicals, heavy metals, and pesticides. You can reduce your risk of becoming contaminated by varying your seafood choices when you do this. You minimize overexposure to any particular contaminant that one species might contain. Alternatively, you could buy from a local fishery that buys directly from distributors. They can often answer questions about the fish or fish eggs that they are buying. A trusted source is always better than relying on a government agency when it comes to food. Safety. If you are looking for the safest fish to eat, try some of the following: wild white sturgeonfish, Oregon or Washington; red snapper from the Gulf of Mexico; rockfish caught by hook and line; Pacific halibut; yellow white rockfish; yellowtail rockfish; United States haddock; widow rockfish; sablefish, California, Oregon, or Washington; black cod, Alaska and Canada; vermilion snapper; white-leg shrimp; Thai snapper; black sea bass; freshwater eel; California halibut. Remember that all fish contain mercury, but you can still have your fish and eat it too if you make your choices from the list above.